Hello again everybody, and welcome back to my workshop for another of my Jeti training videos. And in this video we are going to look at the MAVSense EX5 bus expander, gyroscope and lots of other things, and the MAVSense SE4 gadget that would go with it. Now, I was sent these by MAVSense, who contacted me and said, if we send you some of our little gadgets, would you do some of your nice Jeti training videos on them? And well, how can I turn down an offer like that? So I said yes, and here they are. And if you're thinking, that looks familiar, but I've never heard of MAVSense, it's because they're often sold under a different brand label. The manufacturer is MAVSense. They're from the Czech Republic, like Jeti is from the Czech Republic. But in the USA, they're sold, for instance, by Aeropanda or Esprit models under the brand name Elite. The Hepf model bow in Austria sells them with a Hepf label on them, but you can find occasional shops like Jet Italia who do sell it with the MAVSense label on it. So what can this do? Well, the idea of this device here, the EX5, is that you plug two receivers into it, down there. You plug a battery into it. If I remember rightly, it didn't come in with any terminals, so I've added a multiplex connector to suit the Jeti power ion batteries. And if you're wondering how I got this bit on it, that is a hot glue gun molding. You buy a mold from a company called a company called Winkler. You can get it direct from Winkler in Germany, or shops do sell them, such as e-soaring gadgets in the UK, and you can get them for multiplex plugs for XT60s and a variety of others, and I just use them all the time. They are very, very good. Anywho, back to the bit that really matters. What have we got on the output? We've got three of these high current 3-pin sockets and two ordinary servo sockets. And this can be configured to one of three different modes. They can be all servos, in which case you would need to just get the leads to convert that to a servo plug. You can buy the little plugs yourself to make up your own leads if you want, or buy them ready-made. You can configure it as 4 servos and a telemetry device socket at the end. Or the thing that it's really good for is you buy or make yourself these extension leads, which then plug into an SE4, which has 4 servo sockets or servo pins on it, or you can get an SE6, which has 6 servo sockets on the end of it. And these will output Jeti EX bus or other systems if they're available, and that goes down to your SE4, which would be out in the wings, down in the tail, whatever, and you can plug servos or telemetry sensors into there, or combinations of those, and any telemetry sensing would be sent back through the cable to here, back out through the receivers to whatever. So the idea being that you can have one lovely high current bus cable from here out to deep in your wings, back tail end of the fuselage if you've got, you know, twin booms with lots of servos, whatever, back there. This also includes, as the label on it says, a gyroscope, and I'm going to do a separate video about that because it's quite an interesting setup to the gyroscope, and I think it deserves its own video about that. So let's dive in and have a look at how we can set up the EX5. It's an X-Bus device, so Jeti EX bus, but unfortunately, although it appears in Device Explorer, MAVSense do not provide a device file for it, which means that if you try clicking on it in Device Explorer, nothing will open up. So you do all your settings through Jeti Box. Now, I'm going to connect it up to 2 of the RSAT2 receivers, because that's what I tend to use here in Britain. Otherwise, you can use any Jeti receiver that will output X bus into the sockets. I should point out this does work with other brands of radio if you are using those, so it can take other inputs into the receiver. If I remember rightly, it's auto sensing. So you just set up your Jeti receivers to output X bus, plug them into the two receiver sockets there, and let the EX5 do its job. Right, I've plugged in two receivers, I've connected it up to the battery, I've set up my display. So let's take a look at what we can do to program this. We pop into Menu, Model, Device Explorer, and there are my two satellites with the EX5. Often I find for some reason the EX5 is sitting underneath the second receiver, and I can't find any way to fix it. Sometimes it'll start like this and it'll then jump to the second receiver, but doesn't seem to affect its operation. But as I mentioned earlier, pressing on that will not get you anywhere. Unable to open configuration because MAVSense does not provide a device file. So if you try it and get that error message, that is correct. The way we get to it is Applications, Jeti Box. We don't want the transmitter. We want to go down into transmitter. We want to go right to the next item. Go right to the next item, which is telemetry stuff. Down. So press the down button. And here it's found the EX5. And so we come down again and into its menus. Along the top line, we can go into actual values. If we press right, we get the settings menu. If we press right again, we get to the stabilization menu for the gyros. Press right again, we get to the service menu. So let's come back to the settings menu and run our way down there. Language, choose your language here. Starts at English. Press the right arrow to look at the other languages that are available. Come down. Period. This is if you are connecting servos to the EX5 directly. What output period do you want? Auto, I would suggest not using auto. I would suggest you use a definite number. I don't know if this behaves like Jeti's auto, which tends to jitter a little bit and can give some devices a bit of trouble. So I would suggest pressing the right arrow button and choosing a definite number, such as 10 for digital servos, a nice safe 18, 19, 20 for analog servos. Let's come down again. Now here is where you can choose one of the three modes for the devices. It talks about channels. This is not the channels that your Jeti transmitter is sending out, channel 1 to 5. It really refers to the output sockets 1 to 5. So in this device mode, output sockets 1 to 5 are servos. And just like any Jeti device, you can route any incoming channel to any output socket there. So you could be sending channel 16 to socket 1, channel 10 to socket 2, and so on. We'll come to that in a second. Other options here are, if we press the right arrow button, you have to get a double click on it there, that it will leave those 1 to 4 as servos, but channel 5 becomes a telemetry sensor. I should say socket 5, it calls it channel 5. Let's use socket 5, becomes a telemetry sensor socket. So you could run 4 servos and a telemetry sensor. Are you really going to be doing all of this just to run 4 servos or 5 servos? No, the one you really want, if we come to the right, hold down for a double click, is that sockets 1, 2, 3, and 5 become EX bus sockets. Servo 4 will remain just as a servo output. Socket 4, not servo 4, remains as a servo output. So you could, for instance, have your nice cabling down to the 2 wings and the tail through these 3 sockets here. Channel 5 could be a telemetry input, and 4 could run a local servo We might just have, say, a throttle servo in the nose, or a little, light switch on servo, that kind of thing. I suspect this is the mode that the vast bulk of you would really want this for. Notice the top line now has exclamation marks at each end. What that means is it's not switched that mode. What you have to do is physically switch off the power to the device and switch it back on again, and then this change will take effect. Okay, so if you do that and you think, oh, why is it not working? It's because you've got the exclamation marks there. You need to switch off power to this device and switch it back on again to get it to work. Let me prove that. I'll switch it off by disconnecting the battery. There, switch it on again.
Telemetry lost.
Come back down into our menus. Settings, English, period. There we are. We've successfully changed the bus mode. Right, come on down. Fail-safe delay. You can set that shorter or longer because, remember, fail-safes have to be set in the last thing that the servos are connected to, not the receiver itself, unless you're plugging direct into the receiver. So when this goes into fail-safe, because it recognizes it's not getting data on both receivers, how long do you want it? Well, set it there. Right, now this is where again its language of these as channels and sockets gets a bit confusing. This is where you can send any incoming channel to whatever socket you want and set what type of failsafe it has. So what it says there is channel 1. What it means is output socket 1 is getting input 1, which in Jeti language is channel 1. So actually what this is telling you is that channel 1 from your Jeti servo assignment is going to output socket 1. It will fail safe to hold. It's showing the actual live value. Jeti defaults channel 1 is throttle. My throttle's all the way back. It's minus 100%. So if I operate the throttle, you can see the value is changing. How do I reroute something else into there? Well, in a lot of cases, I say really what you'll want to do is just use socket number 4 for a servo, because these would be your bus sockets. So if we come down, 2, 3, 4. So channel 4 means socket number 4, and it's defaulting to input number 4. In other words, your Jeti servo assignment channel 4. And I'd say, let's say we wanted this to be throttle, because I've just got one little throttle close by in the nose. And so what you can do is you use these left and right arrows to take it up or down the channels. So I'll take it down by pressing the left arrow down to channel 1. There, it's my throttle. So now throttle is coming out on number 4. It would also come out on number 1, except that we have changed the whole mode for these to be X bus. And X bus means that it takes whatever is coming from the transmitter, not the little local settings. The only settings that can affect this are the gyroscope and any fail-safes going out on these. So we have now set socket 4, which calls channel 4, to be input 1, which is Jeti channel 1, and at the moment its fail-safe is set to hold. Now, how do we change that? Because our left and right arrows are changing the input. Well, the fact that it's got both there gives us the clue. We have to hold down left and right arrows at the same time. So I'll hold down both buttons at the same time, and it changes it to fail-safe 0. Pressed again, hold. So we can have that or hold. Okay, so now the fail-safe is activated. A value has not been set. Yeah, this is just like setting the fail-safe in a Jeti receiver. You have to activate it. You tell it to hold fail-safe or output off, but that doesn't mean you've actually given it a value. So what we've done is say it will now use a fail-safe. Let's keep coming down now. So there's the output socket 5. Now set your fail-safes. So I've set my throttle all the way back. double press, or sorry, left and right at the same time. Okay. Let's go back up to socket 5, and there we see the failsafe no longer is at 0, it's actually at -100, which is the value we're after. Okay, so far we've set it to take X bus, which is a two-way communication on these 3 sockets and the little end servo pin. We've set output socket 4 to take input 1, which in my case is throttle. We've set its failsafe to be active, and we've set a failsafe value of -100%. Let's come on down. Set failsafe now. Keep going down, and it scrolls right the way back up to the top. Settings. So there is your settings menu. And now let's have a look at connecting up the little SE4 device and what we can do there. Oh, by the way, before we go there, let's have a look at the telemetry that's available from it. So if you look in sensors logging setup, here we are, the EX5 device. You've got your input volt from the battery, the internal temperature of the device, always handy. If you're in hot climates or a model gets very hot inside, you could set a temperature alarm, because remember, most of these things come with a data sheet that tells you they work up to something like 80 degrees C. Not generally a problem in Britain, but if you're in Arizona and you've got a dark coloured model and it can get very hot inside, and of course when the power is on, these things get hotter inside due to the current flow. We've got roll, pitch and yaw information, which we have seen in use in the MAVSense Navigation Lua app. If you've seen my video about their GPS logger. You've got G-forces, always interesting to know. The status of the device, and that's it. So you've got a fair bit of telemetry there to play around with should you want to. So now we've connected up the EX5 through to the SE4, and let's have a look at what we can do there. Once again, in menu, Device Explorer. As I mentioned, the EX5 is now shown under the second receiver. It never seems to affect it badly. And the SE4 now is showing under the EX5. Same thing again, unable to open configuration because there is no device file. Let's go to Applications, Jeti box. Once again, come right, come down. Now, to get to the EX5, you'd continue down, but to get to the SE4, we go to the right. And for some reason, 5 is reserved in the EX5, and we come down to get to this EX bus device. Unfortunately, MAVSense isn't naming it as the SE4, so it's a bit confusing, especially if you had multiples of them, because you'd be expecting to have 3 of them, for example. So we come down to there. You see that the bracket moved. That tells you which one will be opened when you press the right arrow. So here we've chosen this line. We can press the right arrow and we're into the SE4. Now we come down into it. And if you've ever wondered why I say I hate a Jeti box instead of Device Explorer, perhaps this is beginning to show why. Okay, similar to the X5, we've got actual values, so you can come down and look through those if you want. If we go to the right, we get the settings menu. If we go to the right, there's no stabilization menu because that's done in the EX5. So we have a service menu there. So let's go back to the left into the settings and go down and look at those. And very similar to the EX5. Right arrow will allow you to choose different languages. Period. This is for the servo period for those servos connected to this device. And again, I would suggest probably not using auto, but choose yourself a most definite period. For instance, 10 for most digital servos and 18, 19, 20 if you've got even just one analog servo connected to it. Keep on down. Once again, like the EX5, we can choose different modes for this device. Now again, it says channel 1 to channel 4, but it's really output sockets 1 to 4. They can all be servo. it needs a double pip to move. Or 1 to 3 can be servos, and output socket 4 can be for sensors. Oh, by the way, it will take X bus and EX sensors, and it will automatically detect which one you've got plugged in and take those. And of course you can plug expanders onto those to cope with multiple sensors. And what else can it do? Double pip. Or all 4 of them can be X bus. So you could use the whole thing just for X bus sensors or X bus devices plugged in. For example, what would be an X bus device? Well, Jeti's Meson Pro speed controllers can be operated just like a servo, or you can feed them X bus and pick out the channel you want from it, so that you get both control of the speed controller and all the telemetry data in one socket as an X bus, rather than using 2 separate sockets, one to drive it like a servo and one for that. So you could, for instance, use it that way. Once again, we've got the exclamation marks telling you that the change has not taken effect. You have to reboot the device for it to take effect. And so just to get rid of that for the moment, I'll set it back to servo, but because we've been playing about with it, even though we haven't actually now changed it from the default, it thinks we have. So I will just unplug it for a second, then replug it back in. It will accept the change. It sets the menu back to the top line, so now we can come back down into it. And there we are. We're back to all 4 outputs would be a servo. Come on down. Again, fail-safe delay for those devices plugged into this. Remember, this is going to be a little bit separate to the fail-safe delay in the EX5. So do remember to set it here if you wish. And just like the EX5, channel 1 really means output socket 1. Input 1 means your Jeti channel. Same fail-safe again. And so channel 1 is my throttle. There it goes. If I move the throttle stick, the fail-safe is set to hold. But let's suppose this now is out in the wing, and I don't want throttle. I want aileron servos, rudder servos, elevator servos, whatever. And therefore, to socket number 1, I don't want input number 1. I want input number 2, for instance, which is an aileron. So I'll press the right arrow. Input 2 will now come out on socket 1. It'll be a hold, so I'll change that to a fail-safe by pressing both buttons. Come on down. Channel 2 means socket number 2. That could be aileron as well. Yep, that's great. So both... No, I need to go up, silly me. So up. Socket 1 is input number 2, meaning that socket number 1 here gets my Jeti channel 2. Come down to socket number 2, gets Jeti channel 2 as well. Socket number 3, well, let's change that to some other channel number. And socket number 4 can get yet another channel number. Okie doke. And as ever, go through them and set your fail-safe to either hold or fail-safe. And you need to do it for each one separately. There we are. And as with the EX5, put everything to its fail-safe positions on the transmitter. So, for instance, throttle closed, wheels down, air brakes open, whatever it is you want. And press left and right at the same time to set it. And that's all your settings done. What a marvelous set of devices.